Imagine standing in the middle of a bright room, the light revealing every detail of your surroundings. Yet, behind you, a shadow forms, a part of you, always present but often ignored. The brighter the light, the darker the shadow. This is not just a physical truth, but a metaphor for our inner world. Within each of us lies a shadow, a hidden part of our psyche containing the thoughts, feelings, and desires we'd rather not acknowledge. But what if the shadow isn't something to fear? What if it holds the key to personal growth, authenticity, and even freedom? In this exploration, we'll delve into the concept of the shadow self, considering its origins, its impact on our lives, and how embracing it might lead to transformation. By the end, you'll have tools and perspectives to reflect on your own shadow and its role in your journey. Let's begin by understanding what the shadow represents. The shadow, as introduced by Carl Jung, represents the unconscious part of our psyche. It is where we bury the traits, desires, and emotions that society, culture, or even our families deem unacceptable. These aspects don't disappear. Instead, they linger in the shadows of our minds, influencing our thoughts and behaviors in subtle and often destructive ways. Consider the countless myths and stories across cultures that explore this duality. From the tale of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde to ancient myths about gods and monsters, humanity has always wrestled with the idea of a hidden, darker self. These stories reflect our collective understanding. The shadow isn't just personal, it's universal. On a personal level, ignoring the shadow might manifest as projection, a concept introduced by Carl Jung, where individuals tend to see in others the traits or emotions they refuse to recognize in themselves. For instance, as Jung described in his work, someone who has suppressed their own ambition might find themselves irritated by or envious of others who openly pursue success. Recognizing these patterns, as highlighted in Jungian psychology, is a crucial step toward understanding the shadow's influence. The shadow begins to form in childhood. As children, we are open, expressive, and unfiltered. But as we grow, we're taught to conform to societal norms, a concept explored in depth by Carl Jung in his psychological theories. Messages like, "Don't be too loud," or "Good children don't get angry," shape our behavior, gradually pushing certain traits into the unconscious, where they form the shadow self. Over time, these messages shape our behavior, and the parts of ourselves that don't fit the mold are pushed into the unconscious. But the shadow isn't just personal. Societies too have shadows. Carl Jung touched on this idea when discussing collective unconscious and archetypes, suggesting that groups can repress traits or fears, projecting them onto others. Throughout history, we've seen collective shadows emerge vividly in events like the Salem witch trials, where fear of the unknown led to persecution, or in totalitarian regimes that dehumanized dissenters to maintain control. These examples underscore the devastating impact of unresolved collective shadows. To understand the shadow, one might explore both its personal and collective dimensions. Philosophers and psychologists, including Carl Jung, have examined how the shadow operates on these levels. In literature, works like Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad and 1984 by George Orwell explore the collective shadow, revealing how suppressed fears and desires can manifest in societies. This dual perspective helps us recognize that the shadow's impact is not confined to the individual, but extends to shaping the broader social and cultural narratives we live within. The shadow doesn't stay hidden. It reveals itself in our daily lives, often in ways we don't expect. One of the most common manifestations is projection, a defense mechanism described in psychology, where individuals attribute their own unwanted feelings, desires, or traits onto others. This often occurs in circumstances where self-reflection feels too uncomfortable or threatening, leading the mind to externalize what it cannot accept internally. Have you ever met someone who irritates you for reasons you can't quite explain? Often, the traits we dislike most in others are the very traits we've repressed in ourselves. In relationships, the shadow can create conflict. For instance, a partner who suppresses their own insecurities about being vulnerable might accuse their significant other of being emotionally unavailable. This dynamic often arises from unexamined fears or unresolved past experiences, leading to misunderstandings unless the shadow's influence is acknowledged and addressed. Recognizing these patterns invites self-awareness. Asking questions like, "Why does this bother me?" or "What might this say about me?" can uncover the shadow's role in our lives. Why might we confront the shadow? Ignoring it doesn't make it disappear. Instead, it can surface in unconscious ways, influencing behaviors and decisions. Carl Jung, in his work on individuation, emphasized that integrating the shadow is essential for personal growth. By bringing the shadow into conscious awareness, we reclaim the energy spent on repression and turn it into a source of insight and strength. Jung's work suggests several approaches to shadow integration. Self-awareness. Pay attention to your emotional reactions. For example, Jung proposed that intense emotional triggers often point to unresolved inner conflicts or repressed traits. Self-compassion. Accept that everyone has a shadow. As Jung described, it is not a flaw, but a natural aspect of the human psyche, and recognizing this can foster self-acceptance. Creative expression. Carl Jung often used active imagination, a technique involving creative practices like art or journaling, to help individuals explore and engage with their shadow self. These practices are not about erasing the shadow, but learning to work with it, fostering authenticity and balance. The shadow isn't just an individual phenomenon. It shapes societies too. When groups ignore their collective shadow, it often manifests as division and conflict. Consider historical events like witch hunts, totalitarian regimes, or even modern-day cancel culture. These are examples of societies projecting their fears and insecurities onto scapegoats, as explored in Jung's theories on the collective unconscious. One way to address the collective shadow is through practices that promote dialogue, empathy, and collective self-reflection. For example, truth and reconciliation processes in post-conflict societies, such as South Africa after apartheid, provide models for acknowledging and addressing societal shadows. These efforts, while challenging, demonstrate how confronting collective darkness can lead to healing and unity. Healing the collective shadow requires a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths and acknowledge shared humanity. By embracing this process, societies can build a foundation for greater harmony and understanding. Shadow work is deeply personal, but psychological research and professional practices provide valuable guidance for beginning this journey. These exercises, developed and recommended by psychologists and therapists, are grounded in evidence and have demonstrated positive outcomes for many individuals. Mirror work. Psychologist Louise Hay popularized this technique, which involves looking into a mirror and acknowledging emotions as they arise. Studies in self-compassion practices have shown this to improve self-awareness and reduce self-criticism. Inner dialogue. Writing a letter to your shadow self is a therapeutic exercise endorsed by experts in narrative therapy. Research suggests that expressive writing can help process complex emotions, with a study by Pennebaker and Beale, 1986, showing significant emotional and physical health benefits. Dream analysis. Jungian therapists often use dreams to explore the unconscious. Research on dream analysis, such as Zadra and Domhoff's work, 2017, highlights its effectiveness in uncovering repressed emotions and themes. These practices are supported by research showing their potential to foster emotional resilience and self-awareness. For example, a 2019 survey by the American Psychological Association reported that individuals engaging in reflective practices like journaling or mindfulness experienced a 30% increase in emotional well-being. The shadow is not an enemy. It is a part of you, a hidden ally waiting to be acknowledged and integrated. By embracing the shadow, you embark on a journey toward authenticity, resilience, and wholeness. As Carl Jung famously said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This speaks to the transformative power of recognizing and integrating our shadow aspects. Similarly, Rumi invites us to embrace our imperfections. Don't turn away. Keep your gaze on the bandaged place. That's where the light enters you. Philosophers and psychologists alike emphasize that facing our shadow is crucial for personal growth. By accepting the darker parts of ourselves, we move beyond shame and fear, cultivating self-compassion and understanding. This process allows us to live more authentically, free from the hidden influences of our unacknowledged traits. So the next time you encounter your shadow, consider facing it with curiosity and courage. As experts in both philosophy and psychology suggest, this is how we unlock true self-awareness and tap into a profound source of inner strength and insight.